Story 1. My whole life, I pictured having my own place as the moment everything would finally start to feel normal. Even back in high school, I was counting the days until I could move out. Home was miserable. I didn't get along with my dad at all, and my mom wasn't much better. We were constantly at each other, and weekends were the worst because my dad would be drunk most of the time. The whole house always felt tense, like one wrong sentence could set something off. And once I got older and girls became part of my life, it turned into an even bigger issue. There was no chance I was bringing anyone back to that environment. I couldn't stand the idea of it. So the second I had any real opportunity, I took it. I moved out at 19 while I was in college. I didn't go far away or anything. I stayed local and went to a commuter school not too far from my parents' place. They weren't willing to pay for me to live on campus somewhere else. So if I wanted out, I had to figure it out myself. I spent days scrolling through Zillow, Facebook listings, and Craigslist, just looking for something I could afford that didn't look like a total dump. Eventually, I found a rental that seemed almost too good for the price. I went to see it as soon as I could. The layout matters, so I'll explain it the way I remember it. When you walked in, you stepped straight into this open living area. Living room and dining space together, basically one big room. The kitchen was right next to it, separated by a wall, so you couldn't see everything from the couch, but it was close. Then there was a hallway that led back to the bedroom. That hallway had two closets. One I ended up using like a pantry, and the other was more for storage. The bathroom door was also off that hallway. At the very end was the bedroom. The bedroom was bigger than I expected. A queen bed fit easily without making the room feel cramped. There were two more closets in there, and I still had room for a couple dressers and a TV. The second I saw it all together, I felt this wave of relief. It was affordable, it wasn't sketchy, and it finally looked like something that could be mine. I moved in the next month. For a while, it was honestly fine. I had my own space, my own quiet, my own routine. I didn't realize how much constant stress I'd been carrying until I didn't have to live like that anymore. A few months later, I went out with some friends in town one night. We ended up running into a couple girls we knew, and one of them was this girl I'd known through school for a while. We'd never really hung out one-on-one like that before. I'll call her Sammy. One thing led to another, and I brought her back to my apartment. We drank at my place and put on a movie. Nothing crazy happened. We just sat there, buzzed, and talking in that relaxed way people do when it's late, and you're both feeling comfortable. At some point, we moved into the bedroom to finish the movie in there. I remember the TV glow being the only real light, and the room feeling warm compared to the rest of the apartment. Somewhere in the middle of the movie, I think we both just passed out. It wasn't planned. We were just drunk enough that sleep hit hard. The next thing I remember is waking up because I heard footsteps in the hallway. It was still deep into the night. That kind of quiet hour where any small sound feels loud. I rolled over, still half asleep, and realized the space next to me was empty. My first thought was that Sammy had gotten up to use the bathroom or something. I sat up and looked down the hallway from my bedroom door. I could see into the living area, and I spotted Sammy out there, collecting her stuff from the couch. She was doing it carefully, like she didn't want to make noise. It clicked immediately. She was trying to leave before morning so it wouldn't be awkward, which honestly made sense. I didn't take it personally, so I didn't say anything. I just laid back down and let her go. A little later, I heard the front door open and close, and the apartment went quiet again. Just to be sure, I called out her name once, not super loud, and there was no answer. That confirmed she was gone. I pulled the blanket back up, settled in, and drifted off again pretty quickly. I don't know exactly how long I slept after that, but it couldn't have been more than an hour. I woke up suddenly to a loud sound. It wasn't subtle either. It snapped me awake like my body decided something was wrong before my brain caught up. I froze in bed, fully alert, staring into the darkness. My heart started beating fast almost instantly. That heavy pounding feeling you get when you wake up scared and don't know why yet. I called out for Sammy again, even though I already knew she'd left. No response. I didn't want to get up. I don't know how to explain that feeling, other than it was like my brain was telling me to stay still, stay quiet, listen. The apartment felt too silent. I could hear my own breathing and the faint hum of nothing else. I grabbed my phone and without really thinking it through, I texted Sammy asking if she was still in my place. Even as I typed it, I knew it was a weird message. But I was genuinely scared in that moment, and part of me wanted it to be her. Like maybe she came back inside because she forgot something, and that was the sound I heard. I looked toward my bedroom doorway. The door was still open. After she left earlier, I hadn't bothered getting up to close it. I was still a little drunk, still in that foggy state where your head feels heavy and your vision isn't sharp. But I swear I saw something along the edge of the door frame. Something that didn't match the shape of the wood. My breathing got shallow, and I stared harder, trying to force my eyes to make sense of it. Then I did something that, even now, I can't believe I managed to do. I swiped down on my phone and hit the flashlight button. The white beam snapped on, and because I was already holding the phone pointed toward the doorway, the light landed right on the frame. And that's when I saw it clearly. There were two hands gripping the door frame. Not just near it, wrapped around it, fingers curled from the other side like someone was pressed against the wall, hiding in the hallway, holding onto the edge while watching into my room. The hands were positioned like the person had been leaning just out of view, using the frame as cover. For a split second, everything in me locked up. It felt unreal, like my brain tried to reject what I was seeing. But before I could even move, the fingers tightened, and then the hands snapped back out of sight, as if the person reacted the moment the light hit them. The sound I made wasn't even a normal scream at first. It was like something I'd been holding in burst out all at once. I started yelling at whoever it was to leave, over and over, louder each time, my voice cracking because I was terrified and half panicked and still not fully steady on my feet. I jumped out of bed and rushed toward the hallway. The second I looked out there, it was empty. I hit the light switch so fast I almost missed it, and the hallway lit up bright. For a few seconds, I just stood there, chest heaving, trying to hear anything. Footsteps, breathing, the front door, anything at all. But there was nothing. Just me, standing in a lit hallway in the middle of the night, trying not to lose it. After I managed to slow my breathing a little, I forced myself to check everything. I opened the two hallway closets. Nothing. I checked the bathroom. Empty. I kept expecting to see someone crouched somewhere or to have the shower curtain move, but it was clear. Then I moved into the living area, and I mean it when I say there weren't a lot of places to hide out there. Still, I held my phone in front of me like it was some kind of weapon, like that would matter at all. And I crept to the nearest light switch and turned it on. The room lit up, and I felt a small wave of relief, but it didn't last because the kitchen was still dark. I edged to the opening that led into the kitchen and flicked that light on too, lighting up the entire apartment. Nobody. I checked behind the couch. I checked under the tables. I even opened the low cabinets in the kitchen, the ones at floor level, because at that point my brain was running through impossible options. When everything still looked clear, I ran straight to the front door to lock it. That's when something hit me. I never heard the front door close. After the flashlight moment, after the screaming, after turning on all the lights, I didn't hear a door open. I didn't hear a door shut, nothing. And yet I was standing there alone. My hands were shaking while I locked it anyway. Then I started calling Sammy again and again until she finally picked up. She sounded half asleep and confused, like I'd pulled her out of a dream. I asked her if she'd been in my apartment just now. She told me she'd left a while earlier because she couldn't fall asleep and didn't want to just lie there. I didn't tell her what I saw. I don't know why. Maybe because I felt stupid saying it out loud, or maybe because I didn't want her to think I was trying to freak her out. I just mumbled something like, I thought I heard a noise, told her never mind, and ended the call. Right after that, I called my best friend over and over until he answered, also sounding annoyed and half asleep. I told him everything. Sammy leaving, me waking up, the noise, the hands on the door frame, all of it. He listened. then told me I was probably still drunk and exhausted, and that I might have had one of those weird half-awake hallucinations people can get. He pointed out that I never heard the front door, and that I'd been drinking, and that it sounded like my brain filling in something scary. His explanation helped more than I wanted it to. It gave me something to hold on to besides panic. Eventually, I even forced a weak laugh, apologized for waking him up, and hung up. I went back into my bedroom, shut the door, and locked it. Sitting there with the lock clicked into place made me feel safer, at least enough that my body stopped shaking. After a long time lying awake and listening, I finally managed to fall asleep again. In the morning, with sunlight coming through the windows, everything felt different, less threatening, like the whole thing could have been some stupid drunk scare. I walked around the apartment and checked again. Closets, bathroom, kitchen, living room. It was absolutely undeniably empty, so I went on with my day. But later, I kept thinking about it, about how real those hands looked in the beam of my phone, the way the fingers tightened before pulling away, the exact position on the frame. At some point, I walked into my bedroom and leaned in close to the door frame, almost out of habit, like I was trying to prove something to myself. And that's when my stomach dropped. There were fingerprints on the door frame, clear, obvious smudges, right where I remembered seeing the fingers wrapped around it. Not vague marks you could explain away as old grime, distinct prints in the exact spots that matched what I saw in the dark. I actually got lightheaded staring at them. My brain tried to backpedal, tried to tell me it still wasn't real, but my body already knew the truth. That wasn't some half-asleep hallucination. Someone had been standing in my hallway, holding onto my door frame, watching me. I took a picture of the prints. I still have it saved years later, sitting in my iCloud like a reminder I can't get rid of. I ended up calling my dad, of all people, because I didn't know what else to do. He basically called me an idiot for not keeping the door locked, but he also told me that if nothing was stolen and nobody was there anymore, then I should treat it like a lesson and not make the mistake again. As much as I hated admitting it, he wasn't wrong. I still don't know who came into my apartment that night. I don't know what they wanted or how long they stood there in the dark. And I don't know why they chose to do the creepiest thing possible instead of just taking something and leaving. All I know is that when my year lease was finally over, I didn't renew it. I moved to a different place, a better one, and I never went back. But even now, I can't look at a doorway at night without thinking about fingers curled around the frame, waiting for someone to turn on a light. Story 2. My parents' house never felt like a parent's house. Not in the way most people mean it. My dad was constantly traveling for work, and my mom was always out, either with friends, staying at my aunt's place, or doing something that had her coming home late, or sometimes not coming home at all. I know how that sounds, but it wasn't like they just disappeared and left me to fend for myself. It was more like they were always busy and always somewhere else, like the house was just the place we happened to sleep when our schedules lined up. From the time I was around 16, I was basically living alone. I ate dinner by myself most nights. I watched TV by myself. There were weekends where I wouldn't see another person in that house from Friday night to Monday morning. I'm an only child. And as an adult, I've thought about how that probably wasn't an accident. I think my parents realized pretty early how much they valued their freedom, and I was the trade-off. Back then, though, I didn't see it as sad. I saw it as having my own kingdom. I had a big house to myself without paying for it. Nobody hovering over me. Nobody telling me to turn the volume down. Nobody asking a million questions. I could have friends over and stay up late playing games. I could talk to girls on the phone without feeling weird about it. I didn't have siblings taking up space or borrowing my stuff. It felt like I'd been handed independence early. When I turned 19 and started going to a nearby college, it didn't change. If anything, it got even more extreme. My parents were gone more often, and I was just there, holding the place down like it was normal. I also knew that house inside and out. I knew every little sound it made, That matters because it wasn't one of those places where every tiny noise would spook you. It was older, but it was a big house, and it had its regular creaks and settling sounds. I used to joke to myself that it had personality, and I meant it. This happened on a night when I knew, for a fact, I'd be alone. My dad was out of town for work. My mom had been talking all week about staying at my aunt's because there was some bigger family thing the next day, and she didn't want to drive back late. I remember her saying something like, "It's just you tonight," and I barely reacted because that was normal. I even told her she didn't need to announce it to me like it was some special situation. That night was the usual routine. I made myself something to eat, watched TV, did nothing important. Around 11, I went upstairs to my room and got into bed with my laptop. I'd put on YouTube and let it run for hours some nights, just letting videos play until I got tired. My room was upstairs at the end of the hallway. At the top of the stairs, there was a small landing. To the right was my parents' bedroom. Farther down the hall was the bathroom and a linen closet, and then my door at the very end. I kept my door open. My parents had always told me to leave doors open at night like it was a safety thing, so you could hear more, stay aware, that kind of logic. But honestly, I liked it for another reason. When you're alone in a big house, having the door open makes it feel less closed in. You can hear the normal sounds. It's like background noise that reminds you the house is still just a house. Eventually, I started getting sleepy. I shut my laptop and just lay there, scrolling on my phone, half distracted, eyes heavy. Time got blurry the way it does when you're tired, but not asleep yet. If I had to guess, it was about an hour after I put the laptop away when my phone rang. The screen showed no caller ID. I'd never gotten a call like that before. Seeing it at that time of night made my stomach tighten immediately. I just stared at the screen for a second, then let it ring out. But it rang again right after. Same thing. Anonymous. That second call is what made me pick up. In my head, I figured if it was something important, they'd try twice. And it was just a phone call. Worst case, I hang up and go back to bed. So I answered. At first, it was completely silent. That made me think of those scam calls that stay quiet to see if a number is active. I was about to hang up, but then I started hearing something faint. Something my brain couldn't place for a second. It sounded like a television playing somewhere in the background. And what immediately made my skin go cold was the fact that I could also hear my own TV downstairs through the house. Earlier, I'd left it on in the living room on low volume, just as noise. I wasn't even really listening to it, but it was on. Hearing TV audio through the phone at the same time made me sit up. I said hello again. No one answered. Just that faint TV sound, like whoever was on the line wasn't even trying to talk. They were just there. Then I noticed something that turned that uneasy feeling into real fear. The sound on the phone wasn't random. It matched what was coming from downstairs. Not close, not similar. The exact same audio at the exact same moments, like it was perfectly lined up. No delay, no difference. Like the phone was picking up the living room TV in real time, and there was only one explanation that actually made sense. Whoever was calling me could hear my TV because they were inside my house. I tried to force myself into a normal explanation. Maybe it was a friend outside messing with me, standing near a window. Maybe the call was glitching and somehow feeding back audio from my phone microphone. I've heard of weird things happening with calls, but the more I listened, the less believable any of that felt. The audio didn't sound like it was coming from my bedroom. It sounded like it was coming from downstairs. Like the person holding the phone was standing in the living room. I got out of bed and went to my doorway, phone pressed to my ear, listening. The house felt huge all of a sudden. The upstairs hallway was dark, and my room light from the phone screen barely did anything. I don't know why I did this because it was stupid, but I called out down the stairs, asking who was down there. A part of me still wanted to believe it was someone I knew pulling a prank, like a family member trying to mess with me. The second I yelled, the call ended, just like that. My mouth went dry. I stared at my phone like it could tell me what just happened, but there was no number to call back, no missed call info besides the anonymous label. I stepped out into the hallway and moved toward the stairs. From where I was, I could look down into the lower level. The TV was still on in the living room, still playing at that same low volume. And then I heard a creak downstairs, wood shifting the way it does when someone puts their weight on it. That alone would have been bad enough, but a second later I heard something else. Someone clearing their throat. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. It was the kind of sound you only make when you're a person standing still, trying to be quiet, and you can't help it. That's when it stopped being something I could talk myself out of. Any idea about audio glitches or coincidence just died right there. I backed up, went into my room, and shut the door as quietly as I could. Then I locked it. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring at the door. I trying to come up with the most reasonable explanation that didn't involve a stranger in the house. I even wondered if my dad was testing me, like some weird how would you react scenario, or maybe my Uncle T was messing around. So I called my dad. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. It was around 11:30, so I figured he might already be asleep wherever he was. Then I called my Uncle T. He picked up on the second ring, and I could tell I'd woken him up. He asked what was going on, and I remember telling him it was going to sound insane before I asked him if he was downstairs in my house. There was a pause, and his voice got sharp immediately. He said my name like he was trying to snap me back to reality, and asked what I was even talking about. When I explained what happened, he said it honestly sounded like something my dad would do. While I was still on the phone with him, my other line started buzzing. I looked down and felt my stomach drop all over again. No caller ID was calling me again. I begged my uncle to stay on the line and told him I was going to switch over for a second. He agreed, and I put him on hold. Then I answered the anonymous call. I said hello, keeping my voice low. Same silence at first, but this time I didn't hear the TV. Instead, I heard footsteps. Not just through the house, through the phone. Like the caller had their phone out while they were walking. And at the exact same moment, I heard footsteps outside my bedroom door. The timing matched in a way that made my blood run cold. Like the phone was letting me hear them from inches away. I stood perfectly still, barely breathing. Then my doorknob moved. It wasn't a gentle test. It was a jolt, like someone grabbed it and tried it right away. The door shifted slightly under the pressure, like they were trying to push in. Thank God it was an old heavy door with an old lock that actually held. Even through the fear, I noticed the sound was still lining up with what I heard on the call, like the phone was capturing the exact noises happening right outside my room. Then they knocked. It wasn't frantic. It was controlled, like they were trying to see if I'd respond. That's when I had a sudden thought, and I don't know why it didn't hit me sooner. I merged the calls. The moment they connected, I shouted for my uncle, telling him it wasn't my dad, and that he needed to get to the house right now. I also yelled that whoever was inside was on the phone with us. My uncle's tone changed instantly. He sounded fully awake now, and he started shouting threats into the line, loud and furious, the way an adult does when they realize a kid is actually in danger. The anonymous caller hung up immediately. Right after that, the footsteps outside my door moved away. That was the moment I stopped clinging to any possibility it was my dad messing around. Whoever it was didn't want to hear another adult voice. They wanted me alone. My uncle told me to stay locked in my room and that he was already coming. He lived in the same town, but the wait felt endless. I wasn't a little kid, but I wasn't some tough guy either. I was a skinny 19-year-old, alone in a big house, listening for sounds that could come back at any moment. Those 7 minutes it took him to get there felt like hours stacked on top of each other. I stayed by the bed, phone in my hand, staring at the door, listening to every tiny sound the house made. The silence kept getting broken by normal settling noises, and each one made my body tense up because I didn't know which sounds belonged to the house and which ones belonged to someone moving in the dark. Finally, I heard my uncle's voice downstairs, loud, yelling as he came into the house. The second I recognized him, I ran out of my room and down the stairs. Seeing another person in the house made the fear loosen its grip a little, like my body finally believed I wasn't trapped anymore. We called the police together. While we waited, we looked around the house to see if anything was missing. The TV in the living room was still on, still playing, like nothing had happened. Before the cops arrived, we found the kitchen window open wide enough for someone to climb through. That explained how they got in. When the police showed up, they did a full search. They asked us to walk them through the house, but to stay behind them while they checked rooms and closets. We went everywhere. Upstairs, downstairs, every corner of the place. Whoever had been in the house was gone. Afterward, the officers asked to see the anonymous calls on my phone. I showed them the recent call log. One of them told us that even if it shows no caller ID, there are still ways they can request the records and trace where it originated. He said it might take a few days, but they'd follow up. My uncle stayed over that night. I didn't argue. We left lights on like kids who'd watched something scary and didn't want to admit it. Every room we were in was bright. The house felt less like a place to sleep and more like something we had to defend. A few days later, an officer called me back. What he told me didn't make me feel better. It made me feel sick in a different way. They traced the calls back to someone I actually knew. Not a close friend, not some enemy, just an old acquaintance from high school. Someone I hadn't seen in years, but someone who had my number, knew my address, all that. The police asked if I wanted to come with them when they talked to him. My uncle and I went together since he'd been there that night and knew what happened. When we got to the guy's house, his dad answered the door. The second he saw the police, he called his son down without even asking why they were there. No arguing, no confusion, just immediate compliance. When the guy came to the door, I watched his face change as soon as he saw me and the officers. He looked nervous, not surprised, not annoyed, nervous. The officer asked him straight out if he made those calls. He denied it instantly. Then he claimed his phone had been stolen a few days earlier. He said he'd lost it at a party and never got it back. The officer asked why he didn't report it stolen, and the guy just shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. He said he was going to replace it anyway. The officer told him they might follow up, and that was it. No arrest, no dramatic confession, just the guy standing there insisting it wasn't him. His dad watching silently the entire time without saying a word, and us leaving with nothing solid to hold on to. That night, I couldn't stop replaying it. The way he looked when he came to the door, the nervousness in his face. Was that guilt? Or was that just how anyone would look if police showed up at their house and accused them of something? And if he was telling the truth, if his phone really was stolen, then that means someone took his phone and used it specifically to call me while breaking into my parents' house. Honestly, that possibility scares me more than the idea that it was him. Story 3. It was one of those weekends that felt routine, like we'd done the exact same thing 100 times already. A few of us were meeting up at Cody's house to drink a little before going out. This was after college, and we were all around 23 or 24 then. Cody's place was the usual starting point and the usual ending point, mostly because he had a basement where we could be loud without his parents hearing everything, and also because his parents were pretty laid back. That night, it was just the four of us, Cody, Randy, Jake, and me, going out to some local spots. Once everyone showed up, we figured out who was ordering the Uber, and then we headed out. The next few hours blurred together the way they do when you're bouncing between dive bars and then ending up somewhere with louder music and too many people. At some point, Cody and I hit that wall where you're not even having fun anymore. You're just tired and ready to be done. Randy and Jake wanted to stay out later, so Cody called us a ride back. When we got to his house, he told me I could crash on the pull-out couch in the basement. I took him up on it. He came downstairs with me to help unfold it and get it set up. We were both still in that buzzed, talkative mood, so we ended up playing a quick game of Madden down there. I've never been good at Madden. He absolutely destroyed me. And after that, I didn't have the energy to play another round. I just wanted to pass out and try to sleep off the alcohol before it turned into a worse hangover. Cody eventually went back upstairs and closed the door. And just like that, I was alone in the basement. It wasn't pitch black, but it was close. The only light down there came from a few tiny sources: the little digital glow from the cable box under the TV, the small standby light on the TV itself, and this faint greenish glow from a Heineken mini fridge on the other side of the room. That fridge also made this steady, soft noise, like a low hum and a gentle fan sound. It was weirdly calming, the kind of white noise that makes it easier to fall asleep. I fell asleep fast, not drifting off fast, more like everything just shut off. When I woke up again, it was still dark. I didn't know the exact time, but it felt like that stretch of night where it's either really late or technically morning, like 3 or 4 a.m. My mouth was so dry, it felt like my tongue was sticking to the roof of my mouth. I could barely move my jaw. I realized immediately what I'd done wrong. I didn't bring a bottle of water downstairs with me before passing out. After drinking all night, it made sense that I woke up like that. The problem was, I really didn't want to get up. If you've ever woken up thirsty and half hungover, you know the feeling. Your body is begging for water, but getting up feels like the hardest thing in the world. I tried to ignore it at first. I just lay there staring into the dimness, hoping the feeling would pass. I rolled slightly and looked toward the mini fridge, thinking maybe there was a water bottle in there. But it was just beer and other alcohol. Nothing that was going to help. And then, for no real reason, my eyes flicked toward the far corner of the basement. At first, I honestly thought my vision was messing with me. In the low light, the corner looked darker than everything else, like a patch of shadow that didn't belong. It looked like some kind of black shape that I didn't remember seeing down there before. I told myself it was probably a coat tossed over something, or a pile of clothes, or something harmless my drunk brain couldn't place. I waited for my eyes to adjust. I kept staring, expecting the shape to separate into something familiar as my vision sharpened in the dark. But the longer I looked, the more I realized it wasn't an object. It moved, not a clear step at first, more like a shift. Like the shape had weight and was repositioning itself. That was the moment my body went cold. I felt it in my stomach first, like it dropped away, and then in my arms, like the skin tightened. It was a person standing in the corner. The only reason I didn't scream right then is because I forced myself not to. I don't even know how I managed it. I just knew if I made a loud sound, I'd lose whatever small advantage I had. I didn't think it was Cody. The figure looked too tall, and the way it was positioned didn't match Cody's shape at all. And Cody wouldn't be standing silently in a dark corner like that. I needed to get out of the basement, but I also knew that the second I acted scared, the situation could turn into something worse. So I tried to act normal. After what felt like a long couple minutes of just lying there, I slowly sat up and did this exaggerated yawn, like I'd just woken up normally and was stretching. I tried to make it look casual, like I hadn't noticed anything. Then I started quietly muttering to myself, little complaints about how stupid it was that I didn't bring water downstairs. I kept it low and sleepy sounding, like I was just annoyed and tired. I wanted whoever was in the corner to believe I was about to go upstairs for water, not bolt, and start waking up the house. I got up from the couch and started walking toward the stairs. That meant I had to move closer to that corner. Every step felt slow and loud, even though I was barely making noise. My whole body was tense, like I was trying to walk normally while also bracing to be grabbed. I remember focusing on the stairs like they were the only real thing in the room. The most terrifying part was the moment I had to turn slightly to reach the first step. I kept expecting a hand to shoot out and catch my arm or something to rush me from behind. Nothing happened. I put a foot on the stairs. I didn't run. I forced myself to climb like it was normal, one step at a time, keeping my movements controlled so I wouldn't give away how panicked I was. I was shaking inside, but I was trying to move like a sleepy guy going to get water. When I was about halfway up, I made the mistake of glancing back down. That shape wasn't in the corner anymore. It was at the bottom of the stairs, close enough that the dim little lights in the basement made it obvious it was a person. It wasn't just a shadow. It was a human figure standing there, watching up the staircase. The fear hit me so hard my legs almost gave out. I stumbled on a step and caught myself. Then I stopped pretending and sprinted the rest of the way up. I slammed the basement door shut behind me with so much force it rattled in the frame. Then I ran upstairs to Cody's room and shook him awake hard. I was talking over myself, trying to explain through panicked breath that someone was in the basement and he needed to wake his dad right now. While I was yelling, we heard a heavy sound from downstairs, like a door or something slamming. That sound snapped Cody fully awake. I remember blurting out something like, "You heard that, right?" Because I needed him to understand I wasn't imagining it. Cody jumped out of bed, and we rushed to his parents' room. We woke his dad up, and I told him there was someone in the basement. He didn't sit there questioning me or acting confused. He got out of bed immediately, like his body already understood what that meant. He ran down the stairs fast, taking both flights like he was late for something. When we got down there, he noticed right away that the basement door was open. Wide open. I told him I'd shut it. I knew I had. That's when Cody's dad barked at Cody to call the police, and Cody did. While Cody was on the phone with 911, we realized the back door of the house was open too. That made everything feel worse because it meant the person wasn't trapped down there. They had a clear way out. The three of us searched the basement first, looking behind furniture and in every place someone could tuck themselves. Then we went outside into the backyard, then the front yard, then even into neighboring yards, scanning the dark and looking between fences and bushes. Cody stayed on the phone the entire time, trying to explain everything to the operator while also looking around. It felt like forever, but it was probably around 15 minutes before police finally showed up. They did their own full search, more methodical, going room by room and checking everything properly. They ended up taking a report for the incident. By then, some of the neighbors were waking up and coming outside, asking what was going on. The street had that weird early morning quiet with little pockets of movement, porch lights coming on, people in robes, the sound of distant doors opening. At that point, I was completely sobered up, not the gradual kind. The fear had wiped the alcohol right out of my system. I just felt sick and tense and alert. All I wanted was to go home. Once the police finished up and left, I went inside and talked with Cody and his dad for a bit, trying to process what just happened. Cody offered to drive me home, but I refused. I called an Uber instead. I didn't want to sit around longer than I had to, and I definitely wasn't going back into that basement. I worried about them a little that night, but I wasn't sleeping down there after that. I never did again. We still used Cody's basement for pre-games after that. Like nothing could change our routine completely. But for a long time, the feeling down there was different. And every single time I was in that basement afterward, my eyes would drift to that corner, and I'd remember waking up thirsty in the dark and realizing that shadow wasn't a shadow at all.